Welcome back to the AndEngine tutorials. This is our final look at the tic-tac-toe problem. At the end of this video, we should have a functional, responsive tic-tac-toe game. So, the most of this video will be coding. There isn't a whole lot of slides for me to look through. What we're trying to accomplish today is tying the user interface elements, that's the touch areas, to the data model. First we have to determine which button was pressed and update the model with the new information. We also have to disable the ability to click the button and check if there's a winner. So once we've got a button that's been pressed, we're checking the data model and making sure that that button is no longer clickable so that someone else can't click over it. When there's a winner, we pop up a dialog and reset the game. So, back to the code. Most of what's going to need to happen happens here in this onClick. Remember that onClick method? All it really did was run a method called runOnUIThread, created a new runnable object that included the method public void run. Previously, what this did was it clicked. What we want it to do instead is perform those steps. Figure out which button was pressed. Update the model. Disable the button. Check if there's a winner and pop up a dialog if there is a winner. So the first thing we need to do is determine which button was pressed. You'll notice that the onClick method receives a button sprite, an actual X, and an actual Y. These are touch area local, which means it's an offset within that touch area, which isn't quite as useful for us. So what we need to do is we need to get from the button sprite we need to get the X. Oh, come on. And get the Y. Cannot refer to a non-final variable, yada yada yada. Problem solved. What that does is that basically means that once this onClick has started to run, that button sprite cannot change. Like that reference cannot change, which is fine. We're still talking about the same button sprite. We will do some things to it, but the reference variable will not change to talk to a different reference. We're going to convert the X and Y into grid width. So basically we're projecting, but we take X divided by camera width and floor it. Now it's angry at me because it can't convert from double to float. but sure we can. It's pretty easy. The issue here is actually simpler. So x over camera width has to be multiplied by grid width, because this is going to be a number less than 1, I hope. And then we multiply it by that. Sure, looks good to me. All right. No? All right. We're just going to cast it, and life will go on. You'll find that this still works. Basically what we're doing, x over camera width is going to, let's say for example, x were 100. 100 over 480 would give us somewhere around 0.25. We multiply that by grid width, and it's going to give us 0.25 times 3 is 0.75, which is still in the region where that's somewhere in that first x. So when we floor it and convert it to an integer, everything works out. I don't know why floor doesn't automatically create an integer, but life goes on. I've spent way too much time on this. Boom, boom, boom. Which means either I screwed up or I've overthought it. Anyway, grid X and grid Y would be on this should be true. That's basically it. But what that allows us to do is to make sure that we're talking to the right one about the right spot. Because we're going to use oh man, I don't have a board. That's excellent. We need to create a tic-tac-toe model. So when we're setting up the scene, actually before we even set up the scene, that creates a new blank tic-tac-toe model. We are also going to create a private tic-tac-toe model dot piece. There we are. So when we set this whole thing up, it's going to create a new board and grab the current player. This is mostly just a two-way sanity check to make sure that things are working correctly. I don't know why that was there. Oh, now I do. So if those two are the same, and current player equals board.getCurrentPlayer, then we're okay to update the model. So what that means is board.set value grid X, grid Y, current player. And then we change our get current player on this side to make sure that everything is lining up. Right. Between these two steps, to avoid doing a whole bunch of jerking around, we want to check if current player equals piece.x. We change the sprite to X, else we change the sprite to Y. Changing the sprite to X just means that P button sprite dot set current tile index 0 is blank, 1 is X. This is a hackish, terrible thing to do, but it works. Not Y. Oh. There we are. All this stuff should be happening in here. So we've updated the model and changed the display. Now we need to disable the button. This actually has to happen before we change the current tile index, because if we do it after, then it will change automatically to the disabled version. Okay. Now, we're checking if there's a winner. the winner is not blank, there's some real cool stuff to do. What we have to do is pop up the dialog. We pop up the dialog using, what was it called? Alert dialog builder. It was apparently not called Alert Dialog Builder. Alright. This is all basic stuff that I forget every time. So we'll go see what I did in the other one. Here we are. Alert dialog dot builder. Yep. So it still tells me that I need to import alert dialog. This dot builder is again another factory class. Context is Tic-Tac-Toe activity dot this. We use that AD builder to create a new method, or a new, we want to set its message to winner wins. This create method will create it and pop it up, but we still need to show it after that. We can chain these. But as the instructions said, showing will also do it. Boom. Now, in the case that there's a winner, we also have to reset the board. This is a method that we have not yet created, so we're going to recreate it now. Basically, we're going to save myself a little bit of hassle here. Still easier than typing it out. Again, remember that we have that grid sprite element. The biggest things that we want to do is set these to be enabled, and also to make sure that they are looking at the right tile index. Okay. We also need to make sure that when this happens, the board gets reset as well. Whether there's a winner or not, we make sure that the current player changes. Or at least that the current player matches whatever the board says. Way more useful. Alright. Up here it's telling me I no longer use the toast. I replaced it with alert dialog. And we're off to the races. I believe this should work. I've probably forgotten something, and there is literally only one way to find out. We have determined which button was pressed using that conversion of the button sprite's XYs to grid coordinates. We've done a sanity check to make sure that the sprite we're talking about is the same as the current player. Or sorry, the sprite we're talking about is the one that got passed, and that the current players match up. We are updating the model and disabling the ability to click. Once we have disabled the ability to click, we use a hackish set current tile index. So tile index 0 is blank, 1 is X, 2 is O. Once we've got the elements on the screen, we check if there's a winner and pop up a dialog. So I'm going to give this a run. Take a look over in the console. We are uploading to the APK to the device, installing, and starting the activity, which of course we know works just like a charm. Alright. Everything is working correctly. There's no errors. But for some reason our buttons aren't showing up correctly. It says that our Atlas buildable builder could not build asset bitmap, texture atlas source, xicon.png into bitmap texture atlas. There is a more than moderate possibility that has to do with the fact that I changed, where'd those numbers go? Create resources. I changed these from 512 to 128, which may not have enough room. Alright. We're going to give this another run. Uploading, installing. It installs better if it's not currently running. Success. There we are. X wins. Everything's reset. Next player is O. O wins. And there we have it. A lovely game of tic-tac-toe. So in this video we dealt with the user click event for each button and then combined the UI elements with the data model. Then we tested the game to see if it worked correctly. In a bonus video, which I will not manage to finish tonight because it's 5 minutes to midnight, we'll extend the button sprite class so that it has two disabled textures so that we can choose from either X or O, which is going to help us so that we don't have this happen. I am currently pressing that. That is the press texture. That is also the press texture. But when I let go, bam, it switches. All right. Thanks for your time. I hope that you've enjoyed learning this little bit about AndEngine. We'll be expanding, as I say, that button sprite class. It's going to be a lot more useful for us if we have the ability to choose what it looks like when it's disabled, especially when we get into our Connect 4 and our checkers examples. So thanks again. Have a good night.